Hey everyone, this is John Feneck with the Feneck Commodities Report, and with me today is my YouTube partner, Don Durrett, founder of goldstockdata.com. Don, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, ready for another one?
Let's do it. Don, you and I just returned from Beaver Creek, where we were first day speakers there. We were honored to be two of just 13 people that they had speak this year. Electric environment, I would say, is the best way to put it. I've been attending that conference now since 2019, with the exception of the COVID year, and I've been a speaker every year there, except for one. And this year was just off the charts in terms of enthusiasm. I saw a lot of new buying entities there, meaning like private equity hedge funds. A lot of new investor faces that I haven't seen in previous years. What was your take on it?
Yeah, the tone was improved. The one thing that was surprising to me was how many cheap stocks I found. I found like 27 that basically I'd want to buy. It was, considering that the HUI was down at 200 and is all the way up to 500. The fact that it's went up that fast, 150%, and that so many stocks are still uber cheap, that kind of surprised me because I was doing these one-on-ones with these companies, and I was doing these one-on-ones. I just kept finding good story after good story after good story. It was kind of blowing my mind. I mean, I found like two really solid 25 baggers. I'm going, and I didn't really the last year I really didn't see that because it had started to move. In February 24, it had moved, but it was kind of early, and so I don't know. It's like things have coalesced, but this is like the sweet spot. This is almost like the sweet spot. You're not late. You're not late to this story. But what I mean by the sweet spot is you're able to get in now, and now the bull market. And I think the bull market started in August. And what I mean by August is that a kind of a tone changed where gold and silver kind of just got traction and just started, the train just started going up the hill. And you could just feel it as silver got above
Right.
$40. So, so, but in tandem with that, I thought it was basically a buyer's market, if you will, for stocks at Beaver Creek. But the other thing is, I didn't get that feeling that the giddiness. It felt like this is just starting. Next year, if silver prices are above $60 next year, at that point, our share price will have doubled twice. So everybody will be sitting on like three bagger, right, in their portfolio. I think next year it'll feel more. It'll feel like we're giddy. This tone felt more like anticipation that we're going to do. We're off to the races. Next year it's going to be. I think we're going to feel fairly giddy. We're going to walk into the room with a smile on our face, kind of thing. But it won't be a buyer's market next year. I don't think it won't be like last year where everything you could buy, you could find these 25 baggers, and tons of 10 baggers all over the place. Next year, I think it's going to be more of a hard to find, hard to find really good stories. This year was 26. I think next year it's only about six.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think the tone definitely improved, but it wasn't like people were pounding their chests yet, so to speak, at the CEO level, which I loved. I think there's still some humble pie, throughout the conference, and a lot of smarter CEOs thinking that they still had a lot of work to do, and that's positive, right? We haven't gotten to a point of just absolute outperformance yet. Some of the stocks have, mostly those are producers, right? So a lot of the companies highlighted at Beaver Creek were explorers or developers, and there's still a lot of room to run in some of these names. So just taking apart what you just said, Don, about kind of August was a sea change for you. You and I have talked about this previously, but we both thought that August 1st non-farm payrolls miss, then the revision down in the previous 2 months of 258,000 jobs was really significant. And I talked to people like Andy Schechtman, a few guys that were, have a really good finger on the pulse, that said, hey, that day, August 1st, which was a Friday, basically like there's a lot of demand for gold and silver at the exchanges, right? Like, and I don't know what that exact number is in terms of how overbought they are. I mean, I think gold is getting slightly overbought here. But silver, once it crossed 40, it hasn't closed below 40. Have you noticed that? I mean, like, this is insane. Like, it hasn't gone straight up from 40 to 50 like some people were expecting, right? But like, it's been very methodical, which is really what you want to see. You needed to take out that 42 to 43 range, which we just did, and on a few closes, by the way. And now we're at a higher price than that, and we're headed towards 50. It's just amazing. I mean, you and I have been calling for $50 this year, unlike many, many people we compete with, right? I've said that on 25 podcasts, at least $50 silver by December 31st. And, last year I was just the opposite. I was saying we're not crossing 30, and here's why. And so, like, it takes some time for stories to develop, which I think clients need to understand, right? It's like, you don't just get like you were talking about, like these multiples of return in a year sometimes. It takes time. Like, you just interviewed 1911 Gold, I saw, AUMBF. We interviewed Sean at 11 or 12 cents US. This thing's at 55 cents now. I mean, like, it's still taking time to get there, but that's over like less than 18 months, and you're up exponential growth. If you put 100 grand into this stock, you're so happy right now. So there's so much money to be made in these juniors, and I think it's just a really exciting time for investors. So I think part of your takeaway is, hey, you have to start buying some stuff now, because next year at this time, things might be a little bit more extreme in terms of price.
In a bull market, you want to be on the train. So I was telling people that once the HUI got above 350, once it gets above 350, you got to think about getting on the train, and especially 400, 450. And now it's like, you better be on it. We're at 500 now. So you're kind of late to being on the train. You probably should have got on at 350. And because that was kind of a breakout. If on the chart, if you look at that channel on the HUI, 350 was the top of the channel. And once we got above that channel, it was a total breakout. So yeah, my target going into this year was 45 to 65. So I haven't quite hit I don't know if it traded about 45 yet. I think it might have. So 45 to 65, but that was my year end close. So we haven't got to the year end yet. So we'll see where it closes, but it can definitely close above 50 this year, definitely. And next year, I'm expecting above 60, and I'm probably too conservative. My gold target for this year was only 3,400. I was way below that. Next year, I have it at 4,200, and that might be too conservative as well.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of smart bankers talk about 4,000 plus gold now, which was not even talked about in January. If you remember, the big boys were just starting to talk about 3,000 gold or 3,200 gold in January through March, right? Like, now I'm seeing more and more 3,800, 4,000 for next year. You're at 4,200. We were at 3,800 this year. That was our high target. So we're getting really close to that. And I hope we exceed it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think $50 silver is right around the corner. I think we're going to have a very strong quarterly close September 30th on both of the metals, and that's going to open up some eyes into October. So, Don, let's go ahead, Don.
I'd like to mention one thing. People recognize that a correction's coming because gold's just done nothing but going straight up. The stock market's done nothing. And everybody, I get 2-3 emails a day. Don, aren't the miners going to correct here? Aren't they going to correct the markets? Everybody's paranoid about it. Their portfolio going down 20 to 30%. And I basically say, if you're in a bull market, yes, you'll see corrections. However, those corrections tend to be short-lived in a bull market. So if they're short-lived, you're probably not going to get damaged. Even if your portfolio goes down 20, 25%, it will return back. The HUI, like, is at 500, let's say it goes back to 400, it'll go back to 500. You just wait it out. But I basically, you got to ride bull markets.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Well, Don, thanks for the color there. Let's bring on our guest today, David D'Onofrio, who is the CEO of White Gold. The ticker in the U.S. where we're recording this is WHGOF. We've owned White Gold on and off for about 4 years now. So be good to get an update from David today.
Hi guys.
Hey, David.
Hi, David. Welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
both
Great to see you.
we're both shareholders. We're happy. We're
Okay,
happy shareholders.
excellent. Yeah, it's no, it's fun times and the real privilege to be with thought leaders like yourselves here today. And I know
Thank you.
we're here to talk about white gold, but I'm also a principal at Power One Capital in Toronto, which is it's a merchant bank. We've been investing in financing exploration development for over 20 years now. Pat the Capital is the founder. You guys might have crossed paths with him over the years, some of our other names. So I view this ecosystem from that lens, coming at it from the investment side, and I totally echo what you guys were saying. It was great to see the enthusiasm. It was definitely not a environment of euphoria yet, which is very positive. But I said the analogy, and I think Don, we chatted in the previous Beaver Creek. Everyone sort of, I think it's your comment, everyone sort of knew that things were cheap and there was good value, but there was really no pressure yet to act. It was almost, it was window shopping. Whereas this time around, people were there with an intention to look for ideas. They came with their checkbook, and nobody was fighting over each other, and there wasn't bot deals being thrown around at the bar at the end of the night. But so definitely good progress. And I just think the one aspect of where we are is, it's the maturation of the cycle. And we're about at 12 to 18 months into the cycle, and we've seen the other members of the gold market do their thing. The Agnico has gone from the 65 to 200, and the developers and the sort of these new exceptional discoveries like the snow lines and the collectives. And now we're here to that next level of the juniors. And I think the ones with the good assets in the good place are that next bracket, which is starting to get the attention. And that's what we're seeing in the market. And for us at White Gold, I think that's where we find ourselves to live. And it's really nice to see, the inbound interest coming to us. Like, I think my phone's rang more in the last 3 months than it has in the last 3 years. So it's nice to be in that type of environment, and it's nice to have a company with with very good projects in a very good place with a lot of prospectivity to have a good story to tell. So I totally agree. So listen, really glad that you guys are shareholder. I'll tell you, a little bit about White Gold, and if you have any questions, obviously please jump in. I think White Gold is a particularly unique company relative to a lot of other juniors. And like at Power One, when we get involved with the company, we look at ourselves as strategic capital partners. We want to be able to partner with the founders and bring to the table a lot of value add in addition to our own capital, whether that's our relationship in the corporate network from having been fortunate to sold juniors to the various different majors, technical expertise, access to larger amounts of capital, our relationship within the capital markets, to be able to get that exposure, to have research coverage, sales trade, and all that kind of stuff. And through the years, we've seen what sort of worked out better than not, and you learn from your mistakes. And we developed a bit of a criteria list to look at as we evaluate these different opportunities. And White Gold really, it checked almost all the boxes for what we wanted to see. And just going through the list in no particular order. The first big thing we always look at is jurisdiction. That's always been important. I think in this day and age, it's arguably potentially the most important thing. So White Gold, our projects are in the Yukon, in the Klondike. This was the epicenter of the historic gold rush, which started 125 years ago and is going on today. I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity to go there, but it's a remarkable place. It's the cradle of the mining industry in Canada, and it's still a beehive of placer mining activity. It's not the prospector with the pen in the creek anymore. It's a little bit more modernized, but it's a ton of stuff. It's just such a prospective place, and I believe that it's produced over 20 million ounces actually of placer gold from those creeks. But remarkably, it's only seen very little modern day exploration. And it really wasn't until sort of 2000, the early 2000s, when a prospector by the name of Sean Ryan, who's our partner in White Gold, went there and started to he went there, he called it Sasquatch hunting. Where did all this gold come from? How can I find the source? And 20 million ounces of placer, usually there's a pretty strong correlation between placer and hard rock gold. Maybe I can find some other sources. But what he did find was that this type of an environment wasn't conducive to your typical prospecting methodologies that may be applicable in other areas in Canada or the US. And the reason is there's really almost no outcrop. This area of the Yukon, believe it or not, was never glaciated. So all the soil is still in place where it is. So he had to do, a lot of research and find other ways to, prospect for these gold. And he tuned into soil geochemistry as the tool. And maybe I'll get to that a little later. But what enthused us so much is the prospectivity of this area, in addition to being a great place. When you're going to make these investments, it's a risky business, as we all know. So you really want to be going after a prize that's outsized. That's what we've always tried to do, and this also checked that box as well. What Sean was able to do is assemble a land package that's enormous. It's 300,000 hectares. But this land package is not just, him running up there and making a land grab. It's him using these specialized methodologies that were proven at the time he came to us to be extremely successful. He was one of the first guys there, and remarkably, within a very short period of time, he was able to make 2 multi-million ounce discoveries. So you guys probably remember back, this was sort of in now 2009, 2010. The first one was with a company called Underworld Resources, which discovered the Golden Saddle deposit. That was acquired by Kinross within a year and a half of making a discovery. They kind of lived the fantasy of a junior company, went from discovery to takeout. And the other discovery he made in the district was with Kaminak, and they discovered the coffee deposit. That was acquired by Gold Corp in 2016 for $550 million. Later got consumed into Newmont when they acquired Gold Corp, and as you probably saw, is now changing hands again, where Fuerte Metals has done a deal with Newmont, where they're going to bring in Agnico, Pierre Lassonde, and Trinity Capital to work with Newmont to put that into production. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is this methodology was proven to be extremely successful. Perhaps he's cracked the code, and what he did is he was able to tie up basically everything else in the area that he thought was of merit. So he had used the same methodologies, and our land mass at 300,000 hectares is 40% of the real estate in the area in the Klondike, but really it's about 85% of all the targets that have ever been identified there, sort of in the last 20 years of having been worked over. So we really like that part of it too. And then the third thing was validation from other experts in the industry, and where we were able to get that is showing this opportunity to different people. We know through having been doing this for so long, and we were able to attract Agnico Eagle as our partner right from the very beginning. And Agnico is now a 19.9% owner of the company. So I think in terms of that type of a backdrop, that was enough to sort of get us to wrap our arms around and put our stamp and partner with Sean Ryan and kick off this new company that was called White Gold. So that's the history. I can continue on, or any questions in the meantime?
So I'll just ask a few to start off. What is the game plan? I don't know if you have a slide to this point, David, for like the next 2 years or so. For White Gold, is it?
So I think this is actually some good fortune, but the timing for where we've done with what we've been able to do with the company today is really coalescing nicely with a market that's actually going to be, I think, receptive to it. So from that history, where are we today? I would say there's 3 focus areas within the company, each of which offers, I think we've developed exceptional value, and each of which has, outsized prospectivity. In a time where people are caring, and my 2 best takeaways from the conference, in addition to what was discussed before, was number 1, the Yukon is now on vogue again. It went through sort of some tougher times with the Victoria Gold issues last year. I think with the reports that's come out and the new information that's become available, the market has been able to move past that. There's been a tremendous amount of new discovery success recently. Snowline has done a phenomenal job, and there's other companies up there like Banyan and Sitka and Rattler that are getting a lot of attention. So that was really great to see. And I think part of that and part of what's driving the excitement is the Yukon is still starting to be viewed by as one of the last new frontiers in Canada. It just really hasn't seen the exploration work being done. We've seen it in Alaska, we've seen it in BC. There's been a tremendous amount of discoveries. The work just hasn't happened yet in the Yukon. But now, in the last sort of very short time, 2 or 3 years, as the investment in exploration has gone up, it's been rewarded with extreme amounts of success. So number one, Yukon was hot again. Number two, people were very unaware as to what White Gold has been up to and what they've had to offer. And maybe part of the problem is over the last several years, we've been able to keep White Gold finance just within our own little, Agnico's part, funded us. Power One's been funding us, a few sort of friends and family. So it's been sort of quiet, but I believe we've developed a tremendous amount of value. And we've now brought in a new team member named Dylan Langell to be our VP of Exploration. He was part of the discovery team at Great Bear. He was there literally from day one, saw it right through the acquisition by Kinross, worked at Kinross to take it to 7+ million ounces now. And he's come to our team. We're very fortunate. A guy like that probably could have went anywhere in the world because he thinks this is the type of opportunity that White Gold has presents itself. And where is that opportunity? I think there's 3 places. Number one, we have very significant defined resources. We have a open pittable gold deposit of 3 million ounces now at 1.4 grams per ton. I think that it's definitely the highest grade deposit in the Yukon, and it's one of the highest grade open pit deposits in all of Canada, over 2 million ounces. So for us, grade is king, as you guys know, and we really believe there's a tremendous amount of upside on that in 2 regards. Firstly, in the immediately surrounding area, we've given ourselves a 15, I call it a 10-mile radius around it, 15 kilometers, and we've looked for new zones of mineralization. That's primarily what we've been focused on the last few years, and we've been very successful identifying new trends and discovering new zones of mineralization. Dylan, when he came as a new guy, new set of eyes, a bit of sort of good luck on our part. He said, that's a great approach, but I'm the new guy here. Let me start from the very beginning and look at this deposit. Now, that main deposit was the original underworld discovery, which Kinross acquired, and then we acquired it back from Kinross. So in the last few years, we haven't actually spent too much time on the meat and potatoes. We've been looking for, this, we figured as a junior, we get more bang for our buck looking for these new discoveries. He said, that's great, but let me start here. And what he uncovered was that deposit is number one, the guts of it is incredibly high grade. So of that 3 million ounces, the core is actually 1.1 million ounces at over 3 grams per ton. And even when you raise the cutoff grade to 5 grams, we have 700,000 ounces at 5 grams per ton. So this is a remarkably high grade open pit resource. And those open pit zones are open in every direction. Sorry, the high grade zones are open in every direction. So Dylan said, this year, I want to change the game plan a little bit. I want to continue to work on extending these open zones. And in addition to that, he identified 2 new zones, a hanging wall and a footwall that just wasn't tested historically. So we think that being within the pit, that's what we're drilling right now. And this is, where will be part of our news flow, is going to be very interesting. And it's sort of higher probability exploration because we have indicators that that these new zones are there. Like for example, this high grade footwall, they hit 4 gram material. They had one pierce point sort of right near surface, another pierce point 300 meters below. That was never filled in. So the opportunity for us to go there and do that, being within the pit, I think that's going to be really a lot of value that we can add. So that's part of our program. But the other part of our program every year is to look to make brand new discoveries in these other areas nearby. And we've been pretty successful on that. One of our recent new discoveries on a property called the Betty, that's right down contiguous to this coffee project that Newmont had. And I told you just brought in these, industry stalwarts to develop it. This is the Yukon. We had 3 discovery holes. The first was 5 grams over 25 meters at surface in an oxide on the Coffee Creek Fault. and then we had two others over 3 grams at 50 meters. So these are what we've defined as our new discovery type potential, which are like totally separate properties. And this is, again, the beginning, what got us so interested in the first place. This is a huge, huge land package. We view this as a camp in and of itself. And our dream, like if you want to know what the big fantasy was, is that it's like going back in time, being able to acquire 80% of a camp like Timmins or Val-d'Or and Nevada Goldfields 100 years ago. And as this camp starts to evolve, which is happening today, like the coffee's permitted, those guys are going to move it to production. There's a road that has to get built as part of that, which comes through our land package. It unlocks it all. So now on these other properties, you don't have to find 2 or 3 million ounces to make it workable. You're going to have a heap leach down at the coffee. We'll have a mill up at our facility, and anything you find anywhere else, if it's not already, it's only 2 million, you just truck it to one of the facilities. So that's exciting. The new gold discoveries are exciting. And what we've also identified is several very interesting and high prospective critical mineral targets. And 2 of them are big copper porphyry type signatures right down by the casino property that's owned by Western Copper and Gold. It's an absolutely enormous porphyry. It's like 20 million ounces of gold and I think 14 billion pounds of copper. These porphyries, as you guys know, happen in clusters. We're in the shadows of that. So that's very interesting. Now, we're getting to a point in time where the whole is not valued by the sum of our parts. That's for sure. We know that because we're trading currently at a third the value of our peers in the Yukon on just on the value of the gold on a dollar per ounce basis. So what we identified earlier in the year is we're going to take all of our critical mineral properties, put them in a separate vehicle, and spin that out to our shareholders. So that's something people can look forward to in the coming months. And that'll allow us to build a specialized team to focus on that and advance those properties as well. So those are sort of like the 3 legs of the stool. And going forward, what are we going to be doing? We're really fortunate. We just announced a $20 million financing. It was a tremendous amount of demand. We're going to use that capital to continue to grow the Golden Saddle deposit. I believe this thing has legs to 4 or 5 million ounces and beyond between the main zones itself and these satellites. We're going to continue to work on these new discoveries and then use some of this capital to continue to advance those critical mineral projects. And just one more thing, sorry, I'll finish it. The Golden Saddle itself is now at a point where it can be moved forward to PAs. Studies, and we've started to work on that. We were very encouraged by preliminary scoping study we did in the past using gold prices much lower than they are today. And I think because of the grade, because of where we are in the Yukon with the infrastructure and accessibility in place, we were quite happy with what we saw as the return. So I'm very encouraged about what I think is going to come to PA. So we're building the team now that's going to bring on the engineers, that's going to move that property down the production path. So we'll have production acceleration, we'll have grassroots gold discovery type work, and then we'll have the critical minerals type work as well going on. And that's something, and now we're funded to do that for 2026.
Okay. Great. So then just 2 follow-up questions, and I'll turn it over to Don. So you mentioned the critical minerals spinoff most likely next year. Is that comprised of anything other than copper?
Yeah, so it's the main, there's sort of 4 properties that we're focused on. It's a copper and molybdenum, 2 porphyry targets on that. And we've also encountered some high-grade tungsten on one of the projects. So that's a primary focus of that target. And a few of these other targets also have like some antimony, bismuth type mineralization we've seen in the testing that's done so far. And I think those are kind of the main ones that we've seen to date.
Okay. Okay, great. And you mentioned that, Power One and friends and family had been funding White Gold for quite some time, and now you're doing a financing. So congratulations, that's a lot of money to raise. And I mean, how much will that affect the share structure? However, like, have you done the math on that? Like, if you do raise the full 20, what does the share structure look like now?
So it's not going to actually change it very much. So Agnico is participating for their 19.9%. Our group is participating. We own about, I don't know, post-deal, it'll be around between ourselves and Sean Ryan, 15-odd%. And what I actually is really great about this, and this was part of the opportunity I mentioned, like, seeing that White Gold is, people's eyes would light up once they understood the value within White Gold, and they saw how, mispriced it still is in the market, and the opportunity. And the third thing, and this is where I really think we're going to have a lot of growth potentially. Now is the first time where we're working with the institutions in Canada. So there's Claris led us. It's going to be other Canaccord, Sprott Capital, ATB, which is going to be Cormark, are going to be in the syndicate. So the goal is to get the research out there and present the story to the institutions. When we were meeting the bankers and doing the rounds, they would say, "Oh, what institutions own you?" And really, the who's who that you would expect to be a shareholder in this type of a company were not. So then their eyes would light up, say, "Well, no, they own this, they own Snowline, they own Banyan. Like this is a great story for them, right? It's in the same great place. You have these incredibly high grades, which are very unique, and I think that's going to be the next level of hopefully we'll get investor interest into this story."
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Don. I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, David. Yeah, when I met with you guys last year at Beaver Creek, I basically told you that the project generator model didn't work, and you needed a new model. Today I heard you say our mill once, and I heard you say production twice. Does that mean that the strategy now is to build Golden Saddle?
I think. I remember having that conversation, and it's funny. Like even couple years prior, people view things different. Like the typical Canadian junior mentality has always been, and maybe this is because they're run by geologists: drill, get bigger, and hopefully at some point in time someone's going to take you out. And that works sometimes, but sometimes But then you get to a point like you got to run this as a business. How are you going to optimize the value? At some point in time, you have a critical mass that you should be starting to think about that. And that was not originally obvious to me. You did have a big part in us changing that mentality. And we looked at it. And then I remember even like 4 or 5 years ago when we had like just over 1 million ounces of this high grade, the Australians we're talking to some Australian miners. They're like, "What are you guys waiting for? You have a mine there. I'll tell you have a mine there. I didn't need to do the study. If this is in Australia, we would be mining it now. Sure, it looks like you have 7 years of mine life, but you'll be mining this for 30 years. And that got the wheels turning, yourself and guys like that. So this is where we need to be doing. Listen, we're in this gold environment and gold's over 3,500 and hopefully it keeps going. But, we were already planning for this with sub $2,000 gold and we thought it worked. So anything else is really gravy,
So I got you thinking a year ago. Now let me get you thinking some more. So if you can expand this to 4 million ounces and you can produce at least 150,000 ounces a year at $5,000 gold, which is not that far away, that's $300 million in free cash flow. Times 15 is a market cap of $4.5 billion. That's only for Golden Saddle. Your valuation, so your company's worth $4.5 billion just for Golden Saddle once it's in production. And then you have all these other properties. You have 30 other properties to basically drill. So you basically, the prize is out there sitting there going, here's 4.5 billion. You're currently at about 140 US fully diluted, 140 million. And you got $4 billion just sitting out there ready. All you have to do is take it. It's just there for the taking. Now, just take that back to your board and let them know, hey guys, we got to build this thing.
Yeah, no, bingo.
That's all I can leave you with.
And what opened their eyes, this was after our conversation when we got the scoping study done, the CapEx is actually quite, a manageable number and much less than you're seeing with many other juniors in the market because of where we are in the Yukon, because of the accessibility. And you're like, yeah, like, we can get that kind of capital. Like, we know the people that do this, why not do it? And that's the prize. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, it is quite amazing. And the numbers we saw actually had even higher production profiles and bigger upside, at bank, at $2,000 gold. So it's there.
So the reason I own your stock is because I was way ahead of you guys. I've owned your stock for a long time. It's like, eventually these guys are going to figure it out. If we sell it, we get like 10%. we sell for $450 million. Or we take 20% JV. It's like, we're just leaving so much on the table. Can we, this is stupid. It gets to a point where you either do a 50% free carry, which is, it was not a bad choice. That'd be one choice, 50% free carry. Somebody would probably do it, or you build it yourself. I mean, those are really your only two choices, or sell, where that's not a good choice. But like you said, this is probably a 4 million ounce quality economic project that's worth a lot of money. And your insiders are very solid. You have 35% at least insiders. So it doesn't matter if the sharks show up. If the sharks show up and say, we want to buy it, we're like, well, if you got $4 billion, we'll take it. Other than that, we're not interested.
And you're right. The company was set up to prevent that, because when Sean was involved with Underworld and it got sold for 180 million, like just after discovery, they weren't happy. Like they left a lot of meat on the table. And so here we are. We've obviously ourselves, Agnico. There's a lot of other friendlies in addition to the insider, and I think people are starting to connect the dot of where they see this going. Agnico owns 20% of us. They own a very significant percentage of this Fuerte Metals that just bought the coffee. Agnico does their homework. They have a view on the Yukon. They have a view here. They're amongst the best and brightest in the business. And yeah, now it's our job as a company. My job as management, get the story out there. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to be on your show as I started to get in front of these institutions. Let's get a re-rating, right? Snowline's trading at $1.6 billion. Canaccor's targets $4 billion. We have a third the value, a third of the ounces that they do, right? Like, so that's I think the easy work. But then what you're saying is next.
The irony is that, so Agnico, they realize that we can make 10x on our money here or more. And Newmont has been selling stocks that have 10x on their money because they're not as savvy as Agnico is. Coeur Mining sold all of their stock out of Avino when it was like under $1. I mean, these companies don't realize they're sitting on 10 baggers and they just give their shares away. Agnico's like, oh, we got a 10 bagger here. Let's hold it.
Yeah. No, they've been a great partner, and you're right. They're extremely bright people there.
Yeah. Thanks for being on, David. This is a good story to get out there. Most people are probably always surprised we bring on these really good stories. They think, wait a minute, White Gold, they're just an exploration company in the Yukon. Not so fast. They got more up their sleeve than you think.
I appreciate the interest, and we're getting to a great point of our existence, and a lot of good stuff to look forward to. We've been drilling, and those results should start coming out in the coming months, and we'll have details on our spin out, and then the PA, which has started to demonstrate hopefully what Don has indicated, and that should be published sometime in the early part of the first half of next year.
Nice.
So, I appreciate
so you
everything.
Think maybe Q1 for the PEA?
I'm shooting for Q1. Yeah.
Okay.
And great. I think that's going to be the real eye opener, in terms of what we're going to see on NPV, IRR, paybacks, and that kind of stuff. And then people will say, yeah, like, wow, this is something special.
Especially if you put a Gantt chart on your company presentation and show them what you're going to do, that'll open some eyes.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, I took your advice the first time. I'll probably do it again. So I'll give you full credit for that. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot for coming on, David. We appreciate it.
Have a great evening. Bye.
All right, you too.
That was fascinating. So last year they were the only company on my schedule that I didn't approve and didn't select, and so I didn't go to the meeting. I didn't schedule this, and then. Okay. For some reason, the very next day they put him on my schedule again. I'm going, what the heck? They rescheduled it? I never approved these guys. What's going on here? So I decided to go. So okay, I'm supposed to go to this. And we get in there and I sit down and I told them the story. I go, we're not supposed to really be meeting, guys. I never accepted this meeting. And then I said, but I'll tell you what, I said, I don't think the project generator model works. I said, I own your shares, but not because I'm interested in a project generator. I want you guys to basically, and I told them, I gave them some ideas of different strategies
Mhm.
free carry, 50% free carry. I think that model works, or pivoting to production. And I told them they were the ideal company to do the free carry thing. They basically, what they could have done is just kept 50% at Golden Saddle, and then rinse and repeat. Do that for the next mine, the next mine, the next mine, and just build the company up and make the company bigger, bigger, bigger. But this is even better. Now they're going to basically pivot to production and get that $4 billion. This thing's got 10 bagger written all over it. If they build this mine, it's 150,000 ounce producer all day long, and probably more, but 150 all day long in the Yukon, very economic with a ton of free cash flow. This is going to be a really exciting story, I think.
Yeah,
But nobody
I mean,
knows about it.
I know you've owned Banyan for quite some time in the Yukon, and you and I interviewed Triumph Gold, which is in the Yukon. They're just very undervalued still. I think we interviewed them around 14 cents. They're trading at 21, 22 cents. TIGCF. John's got a lot of promise. They don't just have the Yukon now. They also picked up a U.S. silver project for pennies on the dollar in Utah. So there's more and more stuff coming out of the Yukon. You and I have been talking about this for months and months and months, where kind of Alexco gave the region somewhat of a black eye by just mismanaging things a bit. Then Victoria missed in Q1 of this year, but that doesn't taint everyone in the whole region, right? It's like the Yukon, as David pointed out, is a prolific, mining district, and there's just a lot of opportunity in places like this.
Yeah, I own Triumph and Banyan, and White Gold. I think exposure to the Yukon's important. I think the Yukon's basically a mining district. I mean, Snowline's in the Yukon too, and they're
Yeah,
finding a lot of gold. There's a couple other players as well. Hecla's in the Yukon. I
yeah,
was really
Hecla took it out of
surprised.
Alexco,
Yeah,
right?
and they also acquired. Well, I want to say AppMex, but that's not it. AppMex. What was the? They
Oh
acquired
yeah, I remember it was that was a while ago, right?
apps something. Yeah, and that's in mine in the making. I was really surprised that Hecla didn't bid on Victoria. That is shocking. I thought that was a perfect fit for
Yeah,
them.
yeah, you would think like a major would have been in the bidding process, like Hecla. They have a history of making acquisitions. We just interviewed Greg Johnson, the CEO of Metallic Minerals, MMNGF. Remember that? So we just
Yeah.
interviewed him a few weeks ago, and they're attached to Hecla's rocks in the Yukon. So we were asking him, for those of you that didn't see it, like, what's the likelihood of Hecla stepping up at some point? And that's a very viable possibility, right? The metallic is still small. They have 18 million ounces of silver, right? It's not like they have 100 plus million ounces. But, you know, every junior, as David was just pointing out, has been really cash strapped. Like, they have had to fund with family and friends kind of stuff, for the last number of years. I mean, years, not months, right? And so now we're entering a bull market in 2025 where companies are able to step up. Metallic just raised, I forget the number, it was around 8 million bucks. And Newmont came in and maintained their 9.5. Now David tells us that they're raising, their goal is raise 20 million, and Agnico is going to maintain their position. It's like pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Don, I'll just mention, because we didn't mention on the front end, you and I just both attended Beaver Creek. I'm going to be doing my two conferences, which I announced at Beaver Creek in May of next year. We're doing Washington, D.C. for the second go round this year, May 17 through 19. Beautiful hotel called the Grand Hyatt right downtown near the White House. And then we're going to pivot and literally the next day fly to Florida and do Florida at the Four Seasons, where you were nice enough to speak last year, and that's going to be at the Four Seasons Fort Lauderdale on the ocean front. So for those of you that are listening and you're interested in attending some good U.S. conferences, we can't say that we have Beaver Creek type of attendance, but we try to keep it, small, as you know, Don, to a certain number of companies where we really vet the companies hard. We're not just interested in taking checks, because we want to make our shareholders that attend money. That's how you keep coming back to conferences, right? So a lot of the companies, I brought Collective Mining, as you know, CNL. David mentioned that at 3.30 a share, $3.30. Stocks, I don't know, I haven't looked at it recently, but it's around 12, $13 now in less than a year. You know, I mean, they didn't have the ounces in the ground that they had at that conference. They didn't have the upgraded listing at that time. Uh, Goliath was at 74 cents. I remember. I don't know how I remember that, but I have that kind of a memory. And Roger is now at 250 a share. You know, it's like less than a year. These things have doubled, tripled, quadrupled. Now, not everyone has been as fortunate, right? But the idea is when you attend a conference with 30 to 50 companies, if you can come away with a couple of good ideas, it's worth it. You just came away from Beaver with 26 good ideas, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
it's a matter of just getting on the road and doing it. I really get discouraged when I hear clients like, oh, think about it. What are you waiting for? Like, this is the time you go to a conference, right? You have to go out there as a CEO and attend the conference. You have to go out there as a client and attend the conference and meet up. Like, that's the whole purpose. So we do something different in that we don't allow flow through. We don't allow analysts. We don't allow certain types of bankers to attend our one-on-one sessions, Don, because we want to have CEOs, get in front of actual clients that are buying stock, and that really matters.
So
So,
I have one comment. So last year I spoke at VRIC, and I'm hoping that they invite me back this year. And VRIC is open to the public. There's no charge, which is awesome. It's basically a retail show. Jay Martin throws on in Vancouver in January. Highly recommended. A 2-day conference. It's a big conference, but the one thing that I really like about it is Jay basically he brings on these really big panels in the morning where they discuss macro and they discuss gold and silver. Those panels are really good. I really enjoy those. And then you get all the miners there, at least 100, maybe more companies you can talk to one on one at their booths, and then there's a lot of speakers as well. And I hopefully I'll be speaking there, but I recommend VREC. I really enjoy it.
yeah, that's a good one. There's a lot of good ones globally. Zurich is a big one for me in November, not the SMI one, but the other one that Misha and Jessica run from Beaver Creek. That same team runs one in Zurich, Switzerland. So 2 years ago, I spoke there in 2023. They had about 55 companies, if I remember correctly. Now, last year they had 80 to 90, and then this year they're going to have 125. So this is
Wow.
showing you like companies are stepping up and raising money, as you just saw with White Gold, and saying, all right, let's get out there and market. You can't just find clients that easily because this is a tough sector for a company to find actual clients. And that's one of the things that we do really well at Feneck Consulting is I had 89 client requests this week. I'm not kidding. 4 days, 89 people said, hey, let's sign up for some services. And we vetted out a number of those people to where we hired 28 of those 89 people. We don't want to work with everyone, right? Because we don't have time. We want people that are going to be actively buying stocks that don't come to us from technology, don't come to us from Bitcoin. We're not interested, right? We want people that say, hey, I see the opportunity to hedge my portfolio. I've been lucky to make all this money in the S&P and the NASDAQ. I realize that I own physical gold, I own physical silver perhaps, but now I have to own some miners. Help me, right? Like that's the type of client that we're looking to attend our conferences and to bring on board. So we'll leave it there, Don. But thank you again for the time, and thank all our listeners for being loyal to us and checking out our videos like this. We hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.